I would like to turn this over now to Suzanne Smith, who will talk to us about roundtables.
I have been a member of NCFR since 1989 when I attended my first presentation at the conference in New Orleans as a senior undergraduate student. Since that time, I think I've done every presentation format that NCFR has to offer, but I have to say that my favorite type of format is the roundtable. That's because it allows me the opportunity to share ideas that I have with others, but more importantly, it allows conversations to take place with people with similar interests. So I always learn a lot when I do these presentations, as the people that are at the tables have really great ideas. So that's one of the reasons that I like the roundtables. So what does a roundtable look like? A roundtable is a format that brings people together around a similar topic. They are organized by themes, and so, for example, some of those themes could be teaching pedagogy, or perhaps types of methodology, or current curriculum development of family courses. So each roundtable session has different purposes, and then each table that you go to will have a very specific topic that fits under that larger umbrella. There are 10 participants per table, and you typically have a total of 3 rotations, each of which lasts about 45 minutes. So another advantage of the roundtable presentation is that you get to have some pretty in-depth conversations about 3 different topics over the course of the entire session. When you're developing a roundtable, there are a couple things to keep in mind from my experience. So I found that it's always been helpful to have some type of handout before you get started, which means, just like everyone else has said, you are going to have to prepare for a roundtable, even though it tends to be a little more flexible than some of the other formats. When you sit down at your table, people will start kind of introducing themselves as they get ready for the session to start. If you have a smaller group, it might be appropriate to have everyone introduce themselves, perhaps just say what their first name is and where they're from, and a sentence about why they are attending the roundtable. That way you can be sure that, that you're meeting the target needs of your audience, and that people already feel a little more comfortable because they at least know what people's names are. So once you start the session, it's important, like I said, to have a handout, and I typically give that out at the beginning so that people can have it to kind of reference as I go along. If you're doing something like a teaching roundtable or something on pedagogy or course development, it's also really great if you can bring some examples to show people. So, for example, I've taken handouts that have the specific instructions for an assignment that I'm going to be talking about, and then I've brought along examples of student papers that were based on that assignment, and even brought copies of the grading rubrics if you have a rubrics that you use for the assignment. So the more information that you can give them to look at visually, the more helpful the presentation will be as you go along. Roundtables will typically start by you as the presenter and take about 5 to 10 minutes to kind of introduce your topic, what your roundtable is about, what the conversation is going to look like, and really why you're here, what it is that you've done that you want to share with other people. I always say that it's important to remember that people typically attend a roundtable because they want to be a part of an open dialogue. So it's important that you don't monopolize the session time. While what you have to say is important, what other people have to say is equally important. So that's one thing to really remember with this type of format, is that it's not all about you. So after you have your introduction, you kind of want to start a group discussion or have some kind of conversation. So there are lots of ways that you can do that or make that happen. One thing that you can do to encourage that to happen is to say, so tell me about similar experiences that you have or the knowledge that you have about this. Let me know, what you've done that's worked, and more importantly, what didn't work, because we learn just as much by what went wrong as by what went well. So so I always say you have to have discussion questions prepared ahead of time because you never know what your audience is going to be like. You could have 10 people at a table that are anxious to get the conversation going but don't really know what to say. So for that reason, always have questions ready so that you can start the conversation and that you can keep this conversation flowing. I have found that it tends to, once it gets started, it just keeps going and you don't really have to do much but kind of moderate. But definitely make sure that you have questions ahead of time. Another thing that you can do is, one advantage of being at a conference is that people have name badges on. So if you find that someone is being quiet during the conversation, call them by name and ask them, what do you think about what's being said? Or is this something that you've experienced? Or can you find yourself using this in your work environment? So that they feel more comfortable being a part of the active conversation, because everyone will have more fun and get more out of it if they're able to be active participants as well. So finally, I would say that you should be watching the time as the group leader for this type of format, and that you should take the last 5 minutes to kind of summarize what was said and make sure there aren't any other questions. Think back in your mind about what people said that they wanted to get out of the roundtable at the beginning if you had a chance to do that, and be sure that you follow up on any of those that might not have already been covered. And then the last thing that you'll do when your 45 minutes comes to a close is invite participants to select another roundtable to attend. I often find that people don't always know what they're supposed to do next because they haven't been to one before. So your job as a participant is to kind of say, this has been a great conversation. You now have the opportunity to go listen to someone else talk about it. So, feel free to choose another table. And then you have an opportunity to look at your notes, get organized, get a drink of water, and get ready to go again. And that, to me, is the most exciting part of a roundtable presentation. You get to learn not from one group of people, but from 3 groups of people. Each one is unique, and each one provides something new to you and to those that are actively involved. So next time you're trying to figure out what to do at NCFR, try out a roundtable. I think you're going to love it.